If you stayed at your job for the last 5 years because you like the culture and you value loyalty, I have some uncomfortable news. You didn't just stay. You essentially wrote your boss a check for $50,000 and told them to keep the change. We like to think of loyalty as a two-way street, a mutual pact between a hard-working professional and a company that appreciates them. But in the cold, hard world of corporate finance, loyalty is often treated as a line item on a spreadsheet titled Avoidable Expenses. Your company has a specific budget for people like you, and it is designed to be as small as possible. Meanwhile, they have a completely different budget for the person they're going to hire to sit in the desk next to yours. And that budget? It's significantly larger. Today, we're going to dismantle the myth of the steady 3% raise and look at why your HR department is quietly hoping you never check your market value. I've run the numbers, and the gap between a loyal stayer and a strategic job hopper isn't just a few extra dollars for a vacation. It is the difference between retiring in comfort or working an extra decade just to keep up with the cost of groceries. Before we dive into the math that proves your boss is counting on your inertia, I want to make a deal with you. Most personal finance advice tells you how to save $10 on your coffee or how to clip coupons. I think your time is worth more than that. This analysis is about the earning side of the ledger, which is the single most powerful lever you have for building wealth. If you find this breakdown helpful, consider hitting the subscribe button. It is probably the best return on investment for 20 minutes of your time that you will find all week. I spent a dozen hours digging through Federal Reserve data and labor statistics so you don't have to. We are going to look at how a simple decision made every 3 years can compound into $1 million difference in your net worth. And if you really want to get into the weeds with me, check out the join button below to become one of the optimizers. You get a special badge, and I prioritize your questions when we're debating these strategies in the comments. Let's start by looking at why your manager's hands are often tied, even if they actually like you. In the world of corporate finance, money isn't just one big pile. It is divided into very specific silos. You have the retention budget and the talent acquisition budget. Think of the retention budget as the maintenance fund. It's the money set aside to give existing employees their annual cost of living adjustments. Usually, this pool is capped at 3 or maybe 4% of the total department payroll. If your manager has 10 employees and they want to give one of them a real, life-changing 10% raise, they have to effectively steal that money from the other 9 people. It's a zero-sum game played in a very small sandbox. This creates something called wage compression. Over time, the more experience you gain at a single company, the less each year of that experience is actually worth in dollar terms. You are becoming more valuable to the company every day, but your salary is anchored to the number you negotiated years ago when you knew less and had fewer skills. It's a fundamental mismatch between your value and your paycheck that only grows wider the longer you stay in that swivel chair. Now, compare that tiny retention sandbox to the talent acquisition budget. This is the emergency fund. When a role sits empty, the company loses money. Operations slow down, projects stall, and everyone else gets stressed. To fix this, HR looks at the open market. They don't care what you were making 3 years ago. They care what it takes to get a qualified person in that seat today. If the market rate for your job has jumped 20% because of a talent shortage or inflation, the company will pay it. They have to. This leads to the incredibly frustrating scenario where a new hire walks in the door with half your experience, but a salary that's 15% higher than yours. Harvard Business Review actually looked into this and found that external hires are consistently paid more than internal promotions for the same level of responsibility. Your company is essentially paying a new person premium while charging you a loyalty tax. They know that if they can keep you from looking at the job boards, they can continue to buy your labor at a steep discount. Your inertia is literally subsidizing their profit margins, and they aren't going to volunteer to stop that arrangement. You might wonder why companies take the risk of losing good people by underpaying them. The answer lies in behavioral economics and something called switching costs. Your boss knows that changing jobs is a massive pain. You have to update your resume, handle awkward networking calls, sit through 4 rounds of interviews, and then face the terrifying new kid feeling of a first day at a new office. You have social capital where you are. You know where the good coffee is and which managers to avoid. That comfort has a price tag. Economists have found that most people will accept being underpaid by 10 to 15% just to avoid the stress of a move. Employers count on this psychological friction. They offer a 3% raise because it feels like something, and it's usually just enough to keep you from walking into your boss' office to quit. It's the corporate version of the boiling frog fable. The water gets slightly more expensive every year, but never quite hot enough to make you jump. But if you want to build real wealth, you have to stop thinking of your job as a family relationship and start thinking of it as a business transaction. You are a corporation of one, and you are currently selling your product to a buyer who is refusing to pay the current market price. To beat the loyalty penalty, you have to adopt the mindset of a free agent. Imagine a professional athlete. Do they stay with the team for 20 years out of the goodness of their heart? No, they stay if the team pays the market rate, and they test the market when their contract is up. You are the CEO of your own career. Your human capital is the most valuable asset you own. If you were running a literal business and one of your clients insisted on paying 2019 prices in 2024, you would drop that client in a heartbeat. Yet, when it comes to our salaries, we get emotional. We feel like we owe the company something because they gave us a chance. Here's the truth. They didn't give you a gift. They bought your time because they expected to make a profit from it. The moment you stop being profitable, they will let you go without a second thought. By staying for a sub-market raise, you are effectively giving them a charitable donation that you didn't intend to make. In the next section, I'm going to show you the actual math of what this looks like over 15 years. I've built a case study comparing 2 people, and the result is frankly staggering. If you think a few percent here and there doesn't matter, wait until you see the cumulative gap. Let's put some hard numbers on this. I want to introduce you to 2 hypothetical professionals, Sarah and David. They both start their careers at age 25, earning $70,000 a year. Sarah is our loyal stayer. She loves her team, she does great work, and every year she gets a standard 3% merit increase. She's happy because she's moving up. David, on the other hand, is our strategic hopper. He isn't job hopping every 6 months, which would be a red flag. Instead, he stays for 3 years, learns everything he can, and then moves to a new company for a 20% raise. To keep the math conservative, we'll assume David gets 0 raises while he's at a company. He only gets that big jump when he switches. After 15 years, Sarah has been a dedicated employee at one firm. David has worked at 5 different companies. On the surface, they've both had successful careers. But when you look at the paychecks in year 15, the reality of the loyalty penalty becomes undeniable. Sarah's 3% raises have compounded her salary to about $105,000. That sounds pretty good, right? A $35,000 increase over 15 years is nothing to sneeze at. But David? Because he captured those 20% jumps every 3 years, his base salary in year 15 is over $145,000. He's making $40,000 more than Sarah every single year, just for doing the same level of work at a different building. The annual difference is one thing, but the cumulative total is where the loyalty penalty really starts to hurt. Over those 15 years, I calculated the total gross income for both of them. Sarah earned a respectable $1.29 million. But David, by chasing the market rate, earned $1.56 million. That is a $270,000 difference. Sarah paid $250,000 in loyalty tax to her employer. Think about what you could do with an extra $270,000. That's a house, paid in cash in many parts of the country. It's a college education for 2 kids. It's a decade of early retirement. And remember, David didn't have to work harder than Sarah. He didn't have to be a genius. He just had to be willing to endure the friction of an interview process every 3 years. He treated his career like a business, while Sarah treated hers like a home. Now, here is where most people stop the analysis, but it's actually where it gets interesting. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you know I don't care about gross income. I care about net worth. And when we look at how David can invest that extra money, the numbers move from significant to absolutely life-changing. We're going to talk about the compound interest gap next. Let's assume David and Sarah live the exact same lifestyle. They both spend money as if they only have Sarah's income. This means David is taking that entire Hopper premium, the extra money he makes from his raises, and funneling it straight into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. After accounting for taxes, David is able to invest thousands of dollars more every year than Sarah can. By the end of our 15-year window, his investment account hasn't just grown by the amount he put in, it has grown by the power of the market. While Sarah has zero extra savings from her salary increases because they barely kept up with her lifestyle, David has built a portfolio worth roughly $245,000, assuming a 7% return. If they both stop working at that point and just let their money sit, David's loyalty penalty savings will compound into nearly $1 million by the time he hits retirement age. Sarah didn't just lose $200,000 in wages, she lost $1 million in future net worth. This is the hidden cost of staying too long. You aren't just losing today's dollars, you are losing the future versions of those dollars that would have been working for you in the background. Your boss is effectively stealing your retirement, and they're doing it with a smile and a 3% pat on the back. There is another hidden multiplier here that most people miss: the employer 401k match. Most companies offer a match based on a percentage of your base salary. If your company matches 4% of your pay, and your salary is $40,000 higher because you job hopped, you are getting an extra $1,600 in completely free money every single year. Over a 30-year career, that extra matching money, and the decades of compound interest it earns, can easily add another $200,000 to your nest egg. It's a double win. You earn more, so you can save more, and your employer is forced to give you more in benefits. On the flip side, Sarah is getting a smaller match on a smaller salary. She has to lock up a much higher percentage of her take-home pay just to hit the same retirement goals that David hits effortlessly. This is why I say you can't budget your way out of a stagnant salary. If Sarah wants to catch up to David's savings, she would have to live a significantly more restricted life. She'd have to skip the vacations and drive the older car, all because she didn't want to deal with the hassle of a new job. David gets to live a better life and retire wealthier, simply because he understood the math of the loyalty penalty early on. Now, we have to talk about the ghost in the room: inflation. For a long time, inflation was low, around 2%. In that world, a 3% raise felt like a small win. You were gaining 1% in purchasing power every year. It wasn't much, but you were at least moving forward. But as we've seen in the last few years, that world is gone. If inflation is running at 5 or 6% and your boss gives you a 3% raise, I have news for you. You didn't get a raise. You got a 2 or 3% pay cut. Your nominal salary, the number on the paper, went up, but your real wage, what those dollars can actually buy, went down. The grocery store doesn't care about your loyalty. The gas station doesn't care that you've been at your company for 10 years. They only care about the current price of the commodity. Internal corporate budgets are incredibly slow to react to inflation. They are often set 18 months in advance. But the external labour market? It reacts in real time. If you want to protect your standard of living during inflationary times, you cannot rely on the annual merit cycle. Job hopping isn't just an aggressive wealth-building strategy anymore. It is a defensive necessity. It is the only way to reset your wages to reflect the actual cost of living in the world today. If you don't move, you are slowly but surely becoming poorer every single year you stay. I don't want to make it sound like job hopping is all sunshine and massive checks. There are risks, and the biggest one is what I call the vesting trap. Companies aren't stupid. They know about the loyalty penalty, and they use golden handcuffs to keep you from leaving. This usually takes the form of vesting schedules for your 401k match or restricted stock units. If you have $50,000 in company stock that doesn't vest for another year, leaving for a 20% raise might actually cost you money in the short term. This is where you have to become a bit of a spreadsheet warrior. Before you accept a new offer, you need to calculate your total compensation break-even point. You have to look at what you're walking away from, unvested matches, pending bonuses, or even your accrued vacation time, and see if the new salary covers that loss within the first 12 months. A pro tip here: many companies are willing to offer a sign-on bonus specifically to buy out the equity you're leaving behind. But you have to ask for it. If you don't know your numbers, you can't negotiate them. This is why I tell people to keep a running tally of their unvested assets. You never want to be in a position where you're too afraid to leave because you don't understand the math of your own exit. Loyalty should be a choice, not a cage made of unvested stock options. There is also the LIFO risk, last in, first out. When the economy sours and the layoffs start, the person who has been there for 20 years and knows where all the bodies are buried is often safer than the new hire who just commanded a massive premium. As a job hopper, you represent a higher cost on the balance sheet. To mitigate this, you have to be two things: excellent at your job and financially prepared. You should use part of that hopper premium to build a larger than average emergency fund. If Sarah keeps 3 months of expenses in the bank, David should keep 6 or 9. You are trading the perceived security of tenure for the actual security of a large cash pile. And frankly, in the modern economy, institutional loyalty is a bit of an illusion anyway. We've seen loyal employees of 30 years get laid off via a mass email on a Tuesday morning. The only real security you have is your skill set and your bank account. By job hopping, you are diversifying your experience and building a network across multiple companies, which actually makes you more employable in a downturn than someone who only knows how one specific company operates. At the end of the day, the company loyalty penalty is only a penalty if you choose to pay it. We've seen how staying for a 3% raise can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime earnings and millions in future net worth. We've seen how inflation turns loyalty into a pay cut. Your boss hopes you stay because your inertia makes their job easier and their department more profitable. But your primary fiduciary duty is to yourself and your family. If you haven't looked at a job board in 3 years, do it this weekend. Not because you have to leave, but because you need to know what you're worth. You might find that you're perfectly compensated, or you might find that you're effectively paying a $30,000 a year subscription fee to keep your current commute. Knowledge is power. Once you know the math, you can't unknow it. You can decide to stay, but it will be a conscious choice, not a default setting. If you've ever negotiated a big jump, or if you've been burned by staying too long, I want to hear about it. Let's do some peer review in the comments. Your story might be the nudge someone else needs to finally stop paying the loyalty tax.